The Buddha states, I teach the origination of dukkha, or stress and suffering, and the cessation of dukkha, nothing more. That's from the Majjhima Nikaya 2237, but he says that repeatedly throughout his teaching career. I'm just going to read part of the introduction. What is interesting to note today is how far-reaching is the belief that the Buddha's teachings should be accommodated to fit ever-changing views. And that is a reasonable expectation, isn't it? Things change over time. A key component of the Buddha's Dhamma is change. Another key component is the not self-characteristic me fabricating things to fit my view, which is the ultimately results in ongoing stress and suffering. So the Buddha taught a way to recognize that. He teaches the origination of suffering and the cessation of suffering, a way to recognize it and abandon it. We talk about this all the time. And this is a significant underlying theme throughout the Buddha's teachings. You hear me talk about it a lot, maybe more than you'd like me to talk about it. But the difference between what he teaches and what most common beliefs are, whether they're spiritual / religious or just the way we live in the world, the strategies we've made to live in a stressful world that's always changing. In order to understand that, the Buddha taught a very specific Dhamma that, if engaged with, develops what we hope to develop. And if not, we won't. And it really is that simple. And I should say that the false dharmas, and that relates to what I'm talking about, they're not wrong or bad or illegitimate or anything like that from a realistic standpoint. They just are. But the Dhamma teaches us to recognize what is fabricated and what is not. And in order to do that, we have to be willing to look at our fabrications and look at reality. It makes sense. Then there's another aspect of modern Buddhism, but it really is an aspect of a mind rooted in fabrications. A mind rooted in fabrications, a mind stuck in conceit, stuck in I-making, always wants to define the play and also decide what characters are in the play. Another way of saying that is we simply decide what we want in life and what we don't want. And that starts creating suffering in our life. And when that view is a fabricated view, again, we can only follow with fabricated creations. It's an ongoing problem. So unless we have a way to recognize that and bring it to cessation, suffering to cessation, there's no possible way that we could ever extricate ourselves out of that. One of the strategies that a self-referential ego self will then employ is that idea that I don't believe this, I don't want to accept this, I don't want this in my life. I question it. I question its validity, I question the teacher, I question the source, I question everything about it. And if I question it enough, I don't have to integrate it, do I? I can just live my life in this great open question. There's even a very practicing right speech, folks. There's some very famous books that are written with just that topic, question everything. You've probably heard about it. You've heard variations of that throughout your lives, that it's a good thing to question everything. And I suppose it is until we've come across the Dhamma. And then we should question very carefully and directly, as the Buddha says. So there's the Kassapa Sutta, the teaching to the Kalama. There's a line in there, and I'll read it in a second, where the Buddha mentions how we should question this. And that one line has given people license to say, well, the Buddha taught that we should question everything, including his Dhamma. Does that make sense at all? Imagine going to your favorite college course and your favorite teacher, and he's been teaching you for 6 months, and you're learning a lot. And at the end of the day, he says, everything I taught you was a lie. You don't have to follow any of it. You don't have to listen to any of it. How would you feel? How would you feel if another teacher said, if you came here and I said, you know what, question everything I've said over the last 3 or 4 years, because it really doesn't mean all that much. Figure it out for yourself, because that's basically what that saying is, question everything. What the Buddha said, therefore, monks, if you know the purpose of what I have said to you, you should keep it in mind accordingly, meaning practice it. If you understand it, practice it. But if you do not know the purpose of what I have said, But if you do not know the purpose of what I have said, you should question me about it. Makes sense, doesn't it? Not discard it because you don't understand it. Question me. And of course, this was possible when the Buddha was alive, when he gave this talk. But we still have a reference to what he taught in the Sutta Pitaka. And he also said, or else ask those monks who understand this. And hopefully you can ask me. That's from the Majjhima Nikaya 22:12. That one phrase repeated by the Buddha has been reinterpreted to imply that the Buddha taught to question everything, including the clear and direct Four Noble Truths. So again, it's just that little tweak to that one saying that has, in effect, allowed for everything that's followed. I'm not saying that that's the reason why everything has been adapted, accommodated, embellished, but that is a cry that you'll often hear. And it's often the justification for the modern Buddhism by common agreement, meaning I'll take a little bit here, I'll take a little bit there, I'll take from that teacher, I'll use this little practice and this little ritual, I'll bring it all together, and I'll call it my Buddhist practice. Because those other things I question, I don't really like them. It really doesn't, when you think, it doesn't make sense that an awakened human being would teach in that manner, does it?
Is that the difference between questioning and investigating?
That's a good point, yeah. I mean,
that little thing is, he's saying investigate. After you have the mindfulness, you're prepared now to investigate.
Yep.
Versus just questioning without the mindfulness, because then you'll get off.
Yep, and you'll just reinterpret what you're occurring to fit your conditioned view. Very good point, thank you. And again, that's why the Buddha taught an Eightfold Path, so we have a framework to understand what's occurring and eventually see things in reality. And it requires those specific skills that are taught within the Eightfold Path. Meditation for the sole purpose of deepening concentration. So from a well-concentrated mind, we can hold in mind the refined mindfulness of the entire Eightfold Path. You've heard me say that at least, I think it's 63,412 times, but you've heard me say that often. Do you understand it?
Yeah.
Do you really understand it? That that's the purpose of the Eightfold Path, to recognize fabricated views.
It links into merit and demerit.
In that way, yes, it does. And again, it is what the Buddha taught so that we can do just this, develop awakening. So I'm going to skip over the rest of the introduction. The Saddhamma Sutta. The Buddha was in Savatthi in Jita's Grove, Anathapindika's monastery. A senior monk, Kassapa, went to the Buddha with a question. Why is it that there are more training rules now than before, yet there's fewer sangha members developing full understanding? So as the original sangha developed, and difficulties arose within that sangha, meaning they're getting distracted by different things and different teachers that they hear around northern India at the time, and they want to introduce different practices that were dear to them. And so this is something the Buddha kept coming up against. And then they wanted to take just common, I don't know what the right word is. They wanted to disregard common rules that a sangha, a group of people living together in the woods of northern India, needed some rules, and this was developed over time. And so as the sangha kept growing and people, more and more people with different fabricated views came into the sangha, there were more rules that were necessary. And that's what Kassapa is questioning. Why is that? The official rules, the rules for Buddhist behavior within a monastic society, there's, depending on the lineage in the book, there's 273 for monks, and usually about 220 or something for monks, and 270 something for women, because women need a lot more control than men do. And most of those rules are very practical, but they have to do with living in a committed sangha that's committed to developing Dhamma. The Buddha responds, Kassapa, this is a direct result of what occurs when beings are degenerating and the true Dhamma begins to disappear. So this was even a problem. This was kind of stunning to me when I first read it. Even within the Buddhist Sangha, it was a problem of maintaining that focus and that framework of the Eightfold Path.
I find it odd that even say that at that time, more rules and fewer people who have
Developing the Dhamma.
are developing the Dhamma.
Yeah.
Well, I'm surprised to hear that.
Yeah, and as the original sangha grew, you know, up to a certain point, most everyone directly interacted with the Buddha. And again, there's no way of knowing, you know, whether this is 2 or 3 or 4 years into his teaching, maybe 10 or 15. But obviously, the sangha has grown to where this one person can't be in control of everything or seeing everything. So he's hearing things, and as he's hearing things, he's making different rules, and he's addressing the group in a different way. And Kassapa is one of the most senior monks. He was the one that after the Buddha's passing that initiated the first Buddhist council, a major player in the original sangha. And so even there's that need to change it, to make it different. And so now there might be 3 or 4 or 5,000 people all living in this general area of northern India, but they have also been following other teachers and hearing different teachings, and so they're bringing that into the sangha, much like what goes on here. You know, we talk about different things, and you hear me say, "No, that's not it. Do this." The same thing occurred during the Buddha's time. This would not occur when a counterfeit Dhamma has not arisen in the world, but will always occur when counterfeit Dhammas are revered. Another way of just saying following that Dhamma or Dharma. Just as there is no diminishing or disappearance of gold when there is no counterfeit gold, when counterfeit Dhamma is present, it diminishes the value of the true Dhamma and can completely obscure the true Dhamma. In the same way, when there is no counterfeit Dhamma in the world, there will be no diminishing or disappearance of my teachings. So this also kind of flies in the face of the myth of the Buddha being one Buddha among an infinite number of Buddha gods that are in disincarnate form, dealing with everything and controlling everything and manipulating everything. I mean, why else would we pray to gods like that? Of course, that's not something the Buddha taught, is it? He didn't teach anything like that. He didn't teach that there's any magic or mystical practices that we should be aspiring to. There's just what's occurring right now. But because we have that belief and we want to continue that belief in this nice little sangha, this nice little community that we found, it would be perfect if we could just add a little bit to that old guy's teachings, wouldn't it? Because then I don't have to change. And me and my little group, we can go over here in the afternoon and do some chanting and bowing while the Buddhist group is doing their silly meditating. But we're all part of this wonderful community. We all feel great about it, don't we? And we all have this great leader. Everybody wanted the Buddha as their teacher because he had such a great reputation. Until they realize, much like we all do in modern Buddhism, until we realize what it is that we have to practice. And then some people continue and some people don't. That's just what happens. Same as during the Buddhist time.
I just like that you're coming away with this feeling that everybody wants to feel good about this.
Yeah.
Feel good about themselves because they're doing nice things.
Yeah. And it sounds reasonable, doesn't it? You got this wonderful group of people, all smiling and happy, getting along well with each other, especially now that we got some more rules on how to get along. So why couldn't we bring a little bit of me into it?
Bring a nicer robe.
Pardon me?
Bring a nicer robe.
That's right.
A little bigger bowl.
Yep.
A second meal.
Yep. And that's exactly what was occurring. And so we needed more rules. Even that idea of a second bowl. I'm sure that there were monks and nuns that were getting up in the middle of the afternoon looking for a second bowl. Buddha made the rule. You get your meal before noon and you get one a day. And there's practical reasons. He wasn't trying to be ascetic in any way. It was just a practical way of living, wasn't it? You don't keep taxing the town for 2 or 3 or 4 meals a day. They can't afford it. And you can live well on one bowl. The Buddha proved it.
Yeah, and he tried it out himself The same with the rules of the robes. He
Yep.
tried it out and said, you can't live that way. It's fine.
Yeah.
You're not suffering.
Yep. The Buddha never taught anything or asked people to do anything that he didn't directly experience himself, including the Dhamma. The Buddha continues, it is not the nature of the world to cause the true Dhamma to disappear. Listen to why it disappears. It is foolish people who arise within the sangha that cause the true Dhamma to disappear. And there's plenty of stories of people within the Dhamma that challenge the Buddha and challenge the teachings. But that's when you think about this, that if the Buddha's Dhamma is to continue, who's going to continue it? It's a current sangha. It's current people that practice this. It's not going to be someone else. I talked a little bit about this on retreat. There is a certain responsibility that we should take on. It doesn't mean that we should become evangelists, but we should think about representing the Dhamma when it's appropriate in an appropriate way. And there's a sutta coming up on Saturday and Tuesday that talks to this. The Kassapa Sutta touches on it too. The true Dhamma disappears gradually from within, like a boat slowly sinking. There are 5 unskillful qualities that confuse people and lead to the disappearance of the true Dhamma. And these are simple and direct too. They're rather obvious. Those that live with disrespect for true teachers, those that have disrespect for the Dhamma, those that live with disrespect for the sangha, those that live with disrespect for the Eightfold Path, and those that live with disrespect for deepening concentration. It's simple rules, isn't it? But I was a member of many, many sanghas when every one of these was true. Usually in rather subtle ways, but sometimes not so subtle, such as a common refrain is the Buddha's teachings simply are not relevant. Well, that's kind of disrespecting to the Buddha, isn't it? And that's a common refrain. Or we don't know what the Buddha taught. That allows you to make Buddhism anything, isn't it? I would say if I don't know what the Buddha taught, I'm certainly not going to become a Buddhist. You know, I might as well become a train conductor for all the good that's going to do me if I don't know what the guy taught, right? Or why would I make something else? That hasn't worked for me up until this point, but it's not true. These are the 5 unskillful qualities that confuse people and lead to the disappearance of the true Dhamma. My friends, there are 5 skillful qualities that develop stability and clear insight that will preserve the true Dhamma. Those that live respect for true teachers, those that live with respect for the Dhamma, those that live with respect for the sangha, and those that live with respect for the Eightfold Path. And finally, those that live with respect for deepening concentration. These are the 5 skillful qualities that develop stability and clear insight that will preserve the true Dhamma. Upon hearing the Buddha's words, those that assembled were delighted. It's the end of the sutta. So, simple and clear direction on how to stay focused and how to lose focus. It's simply respect for what we're doing. And really respect, and it's something that's really amazing here in this sangha. It's seen here every week, and it's certainly seen on retreat, is the respect that we have for each other. And even newcomers feel that when they come in here, you know, and that's part of having respect for the Buddha, the Dhamma, and a well-focused sangha. And we continue that here with every class. We don't get into a lot of things, do we? We just stay focused, and it seems to work. We don't introduce that. We're taking the responsibility that we should take for the Dhamma. Thank you. Any questions or comments on this sutta? We'll go around the room. Matt, good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to see everybody. Simple and direct teachings like this don't need too much comment.
They don't.
So, you know, everyone in here I know has respect for those 5 things.
Yeah.
That's why we're all still here. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Lorna, good evening.
Good evening. In the sutra, you mentioned sort of like the phenomena you bump into in life. So where does the hindrances come in? Because it's the hindrances that knock you off your practice, blah, 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 at the same time, isn't it?
Yeah.
You didn't mention those.
Yeah, I think they're all here. I mean, doubt would certainly contribute to wanting to embellish the Dhamma. The need for constant sensual excitement is there, isn't it? I mean, I think that's the reason why people would adopt things like chanting or excessive bowing or those kind of things. It's something that gets my senses. It's a distraction, which is why the Buddha didn't teach it. So they're all part of that. Part of the reason why we would continue eye making is one or all of the hindrances at play all the time.
Not understanding the 5 cleaning aggregates.
Yeah. And again, the 5 clinging aggregates are the personal experience of suffering. Taking things personally, which is the hindrances too, isn't it, is what would lead to wanting this to be different. And it's well-meaning people. There were very wonderful people, well-meaning people that used to come here and say, you know, why don't you do this and why don't you do that? They were completely sincere in doing these certain different things. And the only reason I didn't is I don't want to be part of another unfocused sangha, so I didn't. And, you know, there is a little bit of benefit that comes from this seed. So, but you've all had the benefit of that too, haven't you? And this is something Matt and I talked about. I think we probably touched on it the first day we met, of how important it was, if we're going to do anything, to be authentic in what we're doing. Why just do something else? It makes everybody happy. And pay particular attention to Saturday's and next Tuesday's talk, because the Buddha gets into this in reference to how he answers questions. And basically what he says, the cruelest thing is to make people feel good and lead them down the wrong path. And it is, isn't it? So again, a big part of the Buddha's teaching is this, but looking at this in the right light, which we should, it's uplifting, isn't it? I know what I have to do, and I know how to practice a Dhamma. I know how to keep myself focused, and I know how to recognize when I'm not focused. Come back into the Dhamma. Let me get to Jane. Jane, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. How's your Dhamma practice? What do you think of tonight's sutta?
I just think I'm very fortunate to have the sangha.
Yes,
I
we
mean,
all
I
are.
didn't have the answers, so I can't imagine wanting to change things.
Yeah, I don't either. So I'm glad you joined us tonight, Jane.
Thank you.
Ron, good to see you.
Yeah, I just realized that I've been guilty of all 5 things that at the beginning of my coming here.
Really? You had no respect for your teacher?
I had no respect.
I knew it. I knew it.
Yeah. But it's odd to see that, and somehow I still hung in there. But it's the gradual clarity that came from just being here and continually testing, you know, with what you were saying and what I was experiencing. All that. Finally, you know, okay, can I just give it up now and just stick with this? But it took a while.
Yeah, but you should get the right effort hat to wear, because that's what you've employed. I still remember a talk that we had. I think it was the 3rd retreat, and it took all that time that you were asked, "What is this Eightfold Path? How do I really integrate it?" But that was the beginning of you really integrating the Eightfold Path.
Yeah.
You asked the right question, and I knew then that you were at least good to go at that point. But it took a little bit of deconditioning to get to that point where you could even see it.
Oh yeah. I had a head full of like 40 years of so-called experience that I had to get rid of. It took a long time.
Yeah, that's really the point. It does take a long time. If you are conditioned towards other things, just understand that if you want to develop the Buddha's teaching, it's going to take some time. It's going to take some right effort. The people that I've taught that have had made the biggest difficulty in developing what the Buddha taught are Buddhist practitioners. You know? It's very difficult to overcome that conditioned thinking that it's something else, especially once you've been practicing it for 10, 15, or 20 years. You just have too much invested in it. It was hard for me. I knew it wasn't working, and it was hard for me to let go of all the rites and rituals, and I even a few years into it, I still wanted to do a few little things because they made me comfortable. I'd still go up to this monastery and, hang out with them because they're fun people, and they were, but there was still a strong association that I had to let go of.
And even for a while, you had your own version of the Metta Sutta.
Yeah. And other people are pressuring me to bring it back. And I will one of these days. But I just like the Buddha's words better. And that's not really mine. That was kind of a compilation of a few different things that I put together. It wasn't my own inspiration. So can't take credit for it. Glad you're here. Helen, good to see you.
Good to be here. I guess I feel very lucky that this is where I started.
Yeah.
Because I don't have all that baggage, and that unlearning is much harder than learning. And
It is.
So I don't have that clutter. I have my own.
Yeah, we all have that.
I
Yeah.
brought some of that along.
Yeah.
But I'm decluttering, I think. And, one thing that kind of came to me a few weeks ago was just subtle awarenesses of when I'm carrying ill will, and like really working on that, because it doesn't help anybody, especially me, to be carrying that. And so that's part of my decluttering also.
That's outstanding. So can I ask you a little bit about that? How you're recognizing ill will as it comes up, and what is it? What's the actual process? What does it look like and feel like?
Well, sometimes things that wake you in the night, I don't know why it is, but that's kind of when that shrapnel comes to the surface.
Yeah.
So that's kind of clear and obvious because there's nothing else around. That's just what came up.
Yeah.
Woke you up. The story I told about the woman I hired who never showed up for work, and when I saw her in the Home Depot, I guess it's, I have a long history as a teacher and a long history as a parent, and just that sort of need, I think it's a need, it comes out anyway, to, tell someone if you think that there's a right way to do it, And so when that girl didn't show up for work, and I saw that she had taken another job but never called me, I really felt the need to let her know that if you're ever in this situation again, you should call. I just had that like motherly thing, this is what you should do when you come across this, and I,
with a little bit of snarkiness in there.
yeah, to
Tell me
have
when I
her
want
think-
to do it.
yeah.
Not her. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I just, realized that I guess I was carrying ill will. And
Yeah. Wow.
so I'm just trying to be more aware of it. There's still some big things in my life that I'm, still like shedding some stuff. And so I just try. All right, for example, this is totally bizarre, but sort of Helen kind of thing. If it's the end of the evening and I have this urge to eat something sweet, and my mouth wants something sweet, but my head says no, I'll eat a pickle, because then that like erases the need for sweet. It's Taoist. It's a Taoist thing.
I might question that.
That was the old.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
And since we call it Taoist, it's good. It's
Right,
gotta be-
right. Well, when in Taoism, it's always moon gazing. I cannot see not seeing. I can see. It's sort of you're too close to something, so move away. Just all the expressions always seem to put the opposites together. The solution is the opposite.
When in Taoist, eat a pickle.
Yes. Very good one. So then I'm trying to, when these things come up, try to think about the kindest way I could say what I want to say, rather than putting the hurt that I'm feeling into it.
But a great example of right speech too. I mean, right speech is often considered speech. You know, you take a moment to think about what's appropriate here. And if it's not, it's okay to keep your mouth shut. But that if we really practice a form of right speech, it would be very helpful. In other words, instead of saying to someone, you should do this, the honest thing would be to say, I think you should be this way. Because that's really what you're saying, isn't it? But if you said it like that, you wouldn't say it.
Yeah.
So start saying it that way. When you know, I mean,
Say it in your head. Though.
yeah, it's
And then that also gives you that moment to decide if it's worth saying out loud or not.
Yeah.
You know?
Sometimes it's better just to say it.
yeah. Sometimes it is. It
Yeah.
is. But oftentimes, you know, it's good to practice right speech.
That
They-
is right speech, though, because if you don't practice that kind of speech, then you have wrong self-speech.
Yeah, but you have to have the right framework and restraint in order to hold you.
You know, I make.
The things that I've done that have hurt people the most in my life came out of my mouth.
It's because of eye making, though. If you take the
Yeah.
eye making out of it, you can still say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it might be exactly the same words, but because the intention is different and you're using it through refined mindfulness, meaning it's appropriate to say, that's something else. You're going to love this next sutta coming up because it speaks directly to this. Thanks, Helen. Liz, so nice to see you again. Welcome to your sangha. And you don't have to say anything if you don't want, but we'd love to hear what you have to say. Especially if it's about your parents. Little gossip.
You're staying home.
Yeah.
She is staying home. I appreciate why she doesn't want to.
Good. Just listening. I like hearing what everyone has to say.
I do too.
Good break from home. I guess.
You got it in there. Thank you.
Got it.
You're welcome. Got her out of the
Thank you,
house.
Liz. And please join us over the summer when you can. Mary, good to see you.
Oh, great to be here. Good to see everyone. I guess I was thinking about the right speech aspect and the hindrances and you know, what we say in our head, and that's something Elizabeth and I had a chance to talk about because, you know, she's just graduating college, she has expectations, she's applying for jobs, you know, there's that whole cycle, and we get the opportunity to talk about what is it she's telling herself in her head, and be gentle with yourself. And so the situation has created an opportunity for us to talk about it. And I just shared that, you know, starting with right speech and perhaps developing a practice, you know, anything to interrupt what's going on, you know, that's probably good advice for anybody your age going through this. Anything to interrupt what's going on in your head right now is the cycle of rejection and everything. So it's created an opportunity for us to, you know, talk about that, and for me to try and be supportive in that space. I think you know, the hindrances are always there, and the eye making is always there. And I feel like very simply we're on this path to recognize the eye making. Like that's a hard one. Like it's sometimes easy to see all the hindrances or the 5 clinging aggregates, and but to see the eye making in what you're saying or doing, you know, there's sometimes I have to pull myself up short because I just think I'm doing the right thing or thinking something a certain way, whether it's at home or work, and it's really eye making. And one of the things I love about the practice is the ability to hold yourself accountable in that space.
Yeah.
And to take a deep breath and to start over and realize that eye making is really hurtful to yourself and others.
Yeah.
And the sooner we can, you know, get on with recognizing that and interrupting that pattern, the better off not only yourself but everybody around you will be. So I appreciate this week and the opportunity to be thinking about these things. That's true.
Thank you, Mary. It's I had a conversation with someone the other day about this too. And Liz, I'm not talking about you personally because I don't know you that well, but just don't take this personally. I think it's much more difficult for a younger person around your age and even maybe into their 40s to take up something like the Dhamma, because your motivation at that point in your life is really to establish yourself in the world, isn't it? What's my job going to be? Where am I going to live? All that stuff. And it's hard to do that in an impersonal way, isn't it? And maybe if the right word isn't hard. I would say it's nearly impossible. And it certainly is impossible without the right structure. How would you do it? But saying that, I'm not saying that it's impossible either. So it's even more important in that, looking at it that way, that when someone, whether it's Liz or someone else, is going to encounter the Dhamma, that at least it be pure and accessible. So it's not confusing, because how many chances do we have? So let me, Liz, please just say you don't feel like talking. It's okay with me. You won't. I don't take anything personal except what my dog does. What's that?
I said I taught her the words noble silence.
Yes. Do you have an interest in developing this? And it's okay if you don't.
Yeah, I have an interest in coming back, and I think it makes sense to have something. It's like grounding.
Yeah.
So
It's
probably need that now.
Yeah, there's nothing magical or mystical about this. There's nothing unattainable about it. Everything that the Buddha teaches and that we do here is entirely practical, and it simply makes for a better life. Correct? Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
And it's not, and it's not, and I'm not, this may sound like I'm trying to convince you, and I am, but I don't want it to be so obvious. Anybody can do it, but you certainly can. And this is the time to start. I wish I did. I wish I started when I was 22 or 23, whatever age you are. But all that being said, it's your life. You know? Live it as great as you can. Make it the best life possible. I happen to think that the best life is through the Eightfold Path, but I'll leave you alone now. David, good to see you.
The elegance and simplicity of the hardwood is certainly the best product out there.
Yeah.
Because you do see young people try different things, whether it's walking meditation or, things that catch their eye. And it does take a long time before you get to something so simple. And quite honestly, there's no bells and no whistles and no promises. It's diligence and effort, and that's not always attractive to young people.
No, it's not.
But it is the simplest thing there is, because it is so narrow. It's a narrow path. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it is just that. And I would think that the fact that it's not religious or even spiritual would be attractive, but people are looking for something spiritual too. And when they find out that it's not, it really is not, that can be disappointing too, because the world of the spirit is full of eye making, isn't it? It's full of possibilities. And because it's full of possibilities, it's full of eye making. I can make it be anything I want, and I can believe anything I want in that realm, rather than recognize and abandon my own ignorance. Bonnie, good to see you tonight.
Certainly be here. The word non-judgmental keeps like rolling around my head, because I think in order to practice the Dhamma, to practice the right speech and attention, follow the Eightfold Path, I think saying what you need to say and finding that non-judgmental way to say it, so that you can be honest to what needs to be said to say. And for me, it's always been useful, and in my livelihood too, I have to do that.
Yeah.
And so learning and applying the Eightfold Path gives me an even more concrete, cognitive kind of way of really applying that idea. It doesn't mean that I always make the mark, or so for me it's also practicing things closer to contact, right? So but for me it's always been, in fact, I part of what you learn when you go to become a therapist is, you know, be non-judgmental. And I've been out in the, like you go, like years ago, I'd be at a party or something in my neighborhood and people are talking and they're just saying what they feel and whatever they think. And I was like, oh, there was something really freeing about that though. I felt like I wanted to, because I'm, you know, for so long it becomes more, it's the way my brain is conditioned to think, whether, and however that affects, you know, my own clinging, craving, or whatever that does. But I think the more that I can employ that and then really practice the right speech, I feel like it assists in being able, for me to be able to apologize less and feel like that I'm really, I've taken that middle way. It's not always possible, but so, and it, that, when people came home from the retreat and Liz was talking about the right speech and the connection to not just right speech outwardly, but the inward right speech, which was significant because part of what I really took away from ultimately to very early on is being compassionate with yourself and being able to that like helps to employ that, because if I'm not going to say it to someone else, why do I hear that for myself? So that right speech and also in being non-judgmental. So anyway.
No, you're not. Thank you. Again, nobody has to answer, but I'm going to ask you, have you noticed a change in your professional pattern?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm clearer. I mean, I just think I'm clearer.
And to put words in your mouth, you're much more present, aren't you? No? See, I can't put those words in your mouth.
Present in a different way, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, part of you can't do, I can do the work and not be present, but there's always, that's really important. So maybe it's a different presence.
Yeah.
Because the Eightfold Path provides such for me, clarity.
Yeah.
So maybe maybe it is more present. Yeah. Or more comfortable with wherever I am and being at peace with wherever I am and knowing I don't have to fix or change anything.
Yes.
Like, you know, because part of doing the art is like also creating this safe place and helping people to create a space inside themselves to hold themselves. So you're describing what it's like to have integrated the Eightfold Path and use that framework in your professional life and in your art, and I would say in most areas of your life now. That's the reason why I asked you and draw you out a little bit, was just that. That's such a good example of how we practice the Dhamma and how it manifests all the time. I mean, trust me, I'm calling it practice here. So
it is. Thank you, Liz. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. One of the things I heard tonight as we were all talking is, you know, sometimes we just feel like we need to have a sense of closure of something. So with Helen, and seeing this woman working at Home Depot when she thought she was going to, you know, you just want to have a little bit of closure. You just want to say that one last thing that's going to close that moment. And so, you know what I mean? So
no, I know what you mean. I was thinking of some things that I say at the last thing as I'm walking away. I'm sorry.
Right. Just whether it's that one last dig or that thing you feel that you need to say for yourself. And I don't know if it's a female thing or if it's, you know,
I think so.
I noticed with my husband, he doesn't have that same need to have closure on things, but you know, I need to write them a note, or I need to call them back, or I need, you know, because I just need to
zip this up, and then I can move on to the next thing. And so it's kind of that, and it's you know, the other thing about, and again, I'll be sexist and say I think it's, you know, with women a lot is you sometimes you just need to talk it out.
Yeah.
And during that process, you might not be full of grace and wisdom, but as you hear yourself saying it, you can kind of, you know, reorient it or reintegrate it or turn it around and say, well, that's what I was thinking, but now that I've said that, that's not really the way it is or the way it should be, or I can either contribute to this or not contribute to this. You can make a choice at that point. So I don't know if that's the loophole in wrong speech, but
Nice, fun.
You know what that makes me think of though? You know those magnets that have words on them, and there's like a billion of them on it?
Poetry magnet.
Poetry magnets. And so when they're just all out there in this chaotic form, that's like as you're working through it. And then as you, okay, that word, that word.
Start
and
create
then
some
just
harmony
slow
there.
it, and then you finally break it down.
Yeah.
This is what I should say.
I noticed that tendency for, I guess, women to have to talk it out. And
Sorry, guys.
But
it works.
You know, I constantly tell them, you know, you don't have to talk it out.
Protocol us.
Do this stuff. You know, you can do this stuff internally. At least my you can do this stuff internally. You don't have to involve somebody else with that.
Well, also,
Even if the
Good
subject
luck
of
with
what
that,
you're
Ron.
Did you ever
Give her
shorten
the
that?
hotline number.
Part of ancestral, right? This is about, you know, reaping and
because when
sowing.
you're saying it and then you're deciding that's not where you want to be with that thought, the person you're talking to, I'll say in my case, you know, Tom, he's still back on the first thing I said, and I've already moved on to the third thing, which is
Right.
everything's going to be
Uh-huh.
okay.
Exactly, because we do take
And
it.
you wonder why
Right.
poor,
We take it to heart.
you wonder why poor Tom is confused.
It's tricky, Ron.
All right, there's an explanation.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh, good.
If
So-
there's a
Lay
way,
it on.
Women are XX chromosomes and men are XY. It's that little leg that you guys don't have.
That's missing.
It's missing.
It's on the hunt.
Yeah, it's that Y leg.
Matt,
I
what were you
learned that
going
in
to say?
anthropology.
just if for men or women or anybody, this is kind of touching on what Frank said, you know, can we be mindful of mind while that is occurring? What's the quality of our mind as these things are coming up and we're putting words to them and we're moved to talk about whatever, you know, do we lose our mind? Do we lose the quality of our mind, or are we?
You become personally involved in it, I think
Right.
so. But when I'm looking at it from a business perspective, if you interview somebody and offer them a job, they accept it, and they don't show up, they're appropriating your time, and they need to know wherever you bump into them. I think that's the perfect opportunity, and it's not a big discussion. It's more like you just say it. It's disrespectful. Have a nice day.
Nick, how are you tonight?
I'm very good tonight. How are you tonight?
I'm good. Thanks for asking.
I don't have much to say. I do have a couple of. When a man has the last word, it's the beginning of the next argument.
Sometimes.
I think it's opposite of
Well, I think we're finding out that right speech is kind of a challenge for most people in the world today.
Yeah.
So it's a good place to introduce the Dhamma. Thank you, Nick.
Wait,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Since there's a very young person here today, whenever I, very young, you're very young. Hey,
I thought you were talking about me.
I always like to try and say, don't wait till you're 70 years old to be sad.
Yeah.
Very wise. Thank you. Frank, good to see you. Welcome back.
Good to see everybody. And it's good to be here. I like what Liz said, actually, and I connected with that. I think everybody needs something, no matter what age you are. And this has turned out to be a refuge for me. And I'm thankful that it has been the correct Dhamma to study, because it feels like, you know, the Dharma, the studying, the practice, the integration, starting my day off with right view and setting my intention seems to create the rest of my day to feel very balanced and grounded.
Yeah.
And I think being grounded is a good place to be.
And you take direct action to do that. Another word for being grounded, I would say, is to have your mind united in its body, which is what the ultimate goal of the Buddha's Dhamma is for. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Eric, good to see you. How are you?
Good to see you. Good to be here. And yeah, I think for me, the ability to keep an open mind, it gives me the ability to give the Dhamma and everything involved in it the respect it deserves.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just because I know that when my mind is closed, I don't know, it just
Doesn't feel good, does it? It feels like it is. It's constricted. I'm glad you're here tonight. I know you guys want to run. You want to wait for Meta? Or do you want to run? You can go. Go ahead. I know you guys got a long ride. Good to see you both.
Good night. Good night, Eric.
I can't remember if I put it in the email or not, but the retreat recordings are up and posted if you want to listen to them. It really was a great retreat, but they all are. And the registration is up for our fall retreat. Any other questions or comments about tonight's class? Okay, we'll finish with metta as we always do. So find your relaxed meditation posture. Gently close your eyes, gently close your mouth. And again, take a moment to become mindful of your in-breath and your out-breath. And these are the Buddha's words on metta from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing, in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you all for a wonderful class tonight. Peace. See you, Jane.
See you, John. Have a good week.
You too.